G'day. I've got a really simple and really compact cooking setup when I go camping, and I'm about to cook my breakfast, so I'll show you what it is. And I've also got a new camera with a supposedly wind muffling foamy thing on it, so we'll see how that goes at the same time. This is my entire campfire cooking setup, and everything on there above the grate sits in that little plastic bucket, which is relatively shallow, and that's all I take away. Alright, so this is everything I take away. Some of the older folk may recognise this from, Jesus, probably the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. It's a Kmart enamelled stovetop kettle. It used to have flowers and all that sort of stuff on the outside of it, which I've had for many years in my camping kits. Been very good to me, and it's very sturdy. Anyway, I have the camping stove, which I've got another video on, and I'll put a link to that at the end of this one. The camp oven, which is both camp oven and frying pan all in one. It's got the handle that attaches to it, and that all lives in this mesh bag that I whipped up on my mum's Janome. And got a sandwich press here, and the grate that everything sits on. And all of this stuff on top, including the stove, the camp oven, the kettle, and all that sort of stuff, all sits in this plastic box, and that's where it lives. So regardless of whether I'm going away in the caravan, which I am now, or in my swag, or in the rooftop tent, it's the same bucket that comes with me everywhere. I quite enjoy cooking on the fire, and when I can, I do. Even when I'm in the caravan, I still like to cook on the fire. I don't cook on this mesh or the plate. I use that just to manoeuvre the frying pan and my other cooking stuff, and the kettle and all that sort of stuff. I just use that to manoeuvre it over the fire. So, you know, more over the fire if I want more heat, and less over the fire if I don't want any heat. So I'll often just sit the kettle on the corner of the stove and just have it over the corner of the fire here. Fire lighters, newspaper. Just a bit of a side story. I bought these redhead, they're called redhead Firestarters, and they're actually called, they've got underneath it, igniting goodness. I'm not 100% sure what that means, and I bought them, and they're like, sort of like munched up cardboard matches, and they've got a little like sulphur top on them, and on the side of the box is the strike thing. I thought, oh, that's pretty cool, so I grabbed them, and then I realised that to light a bloody fire, you put all your sticks and paper and all that crap on the ground, and then you light this thing, I don't know, where you just throw it into on top of it or whatever. So anyway, I don't know how that works, but so how this works for me is I cook over the fire, obviously, and if the weather's a bit crappy, if it starts raining, or for whatever reason I run for cover and I can't light a fire, I can still use exactly the same setup that I have. Nothing changes. Just tip the lid over on my little thing, stick the stove in there, and slide it under there and turn it on, and then I can cook over the top of that. It's far away. This thing chucks out a fair amount of heat, so you've got to be a little bit careful with it. But if you put it on top of that plate, underneath that plate, and then put the frying pan on top of that, it dulls that heat right down. But it's very effective under there, and it makes the same setup that I use to cook on the fire the same, whether I've got a fire or whether I haven't got a fire. The same stuff goes away with me. Van, tent, rooftop tent, everything's the same, sits in that bucket. I've got a storage frame in the back of the car where that bucket slides into. It's got its own little home there, and it's got its own little home at the factory at home. So when I go away, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buckets, plastic buckets that have all got their own little housing in the back of the car, and depending on what sort of camping I'm going to do will depend on which buckets I take. On this particular trip I've only taken 2. One's for this stuff, which goes away with me all the time, and most of the other buckets stay at home because they're more aimed at actual camping with the tent. So there's more stuff in those for chainsaw stuff and all that sort of stuff, although I've got that with me here today. And that's what I cook on. So I'm about to cook my brekkie, so I'm going to light the fire now, and I'll show you what I do with this mesh thing. This folds up. This was really cheap. And probably nasty. It's very lightweight. It's very lightweight. It's very thin steel. It's very lightweight, and it doesn't take up much room because it lies flat. Obviously, weighs bugger all. Sits in a canvas bag, and I don't cook on it, so it's never got grease or anything on it. It's only got soot. Windy today. With the camp oven and by the cooking setup that I've got, I can pretty much cook anything. I can bake, fry, roast, deep fry, shallow fry, pretty much do everything that most people would want to do with their camping gear. Yeah, it suits me, does everything that I need to do, but the key to it is it's very simple. Very easy, very lightweight, very compact, and that suits me. So this is pretty much what I do when I cook. Slide the grate over toward the fire, manoeuvre it around to where I'm getting the heat that I want, and then put the frying pan or the kettle or whatever over that fire and cook that way. As I said before, I choose not to cook on that plate. I find that sort of thing, the heat's too hard to regulate. If you're cooking on top of that, it's either going to be too bloody hot or not quite hot enough. And to get it into that right sweet spot and keep it there, it's too much work. Too much jerking around. This is far easier, and that serves me very well. It's very easy to control the heat on this thing just by moving it backwards and forwards, and moving this backwards and forwards as well. So it makes it a little bit easier. Just on a side note, sriracha chili, we like a bit of hot shit, and I bought this Kewpie. I like Kewpie as well, and it's mixed with that sriracha chili sauce, and it's freaking awesome. So if you like a bit of mayo and you like a bit of chili, get into that. So I'll keep that there. Normally I keep the billy on most of the time. So I'll get it up to boiling. I pull it back a little bit and then keep it warm. Makes it a little bit easier to do dishes and stuff like that later, plus make a cup of coffee. That thing's been hanging over fires, sitting on top of fires, sitting on top of grills and stuff for, geez, the best part of 30 odd years. So once a little bit of the heat moves out of that frying pan, it's pretty easy to just push that over a little bit and get a bit more heat into it. Pull it around, move the frying pan, move the grate. Makes it a lot more controllable, a little bit easier to deal with. I like my eggs broken. If you don't, look away now. May have just upset a few more viewers flipping the egg. You'll get over it. Alright, nick off and go and have my breakfast.